Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. We are live and direct for a special Monday night session of the Sister Shanice show. As you can see, we've got Brother Kwame in the house. Rise up, Brother Kwame.
Rise up, Sister Shanice. Rise up, everyone who's watching us.
Good to see you, my brother. And how have you been since the last time we had the pleasure of having you here on the Sister Shanice show?
I have been very, very great. Thinking about our Africa as always. Africa, you know, is very dear to my heart, and the African people all around the world, they are very, very dear to my heart. And yeah, I've been very well. It is unfortunate that last time we were not able to take it to further to go far with the conversation because of my network, which was unstable. But I want to hope today it will be much better, and going forward with our next conversations, we will have a very good network whereby we can have these candid conversations about Africa and see where we can take Africa within our generation, so that we can make our contribution in addition to what our ancestors in Haiti did, what our ancestors in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, all our ancestors, George Padimo, all of them, what they did. So we also want to see that we make our contribution in this, our generation, to the African people all around the world and the continent in general, in rebuilding it. Thank you very much, Sister Shanice.
Thank you very much indeed, Brother Kwame. It's a privilege. And thank you so much, for calling on the names of some of our ancestors there, because every time we call their name, we're bringing their memory back to life. We're bringing everything that they lived for, and represented while they were alive. We're bringing it back to life. Rise up, Prophet Maduti. Welcome.
Yes, Otep, Sister Shanice, and greetings in the name of the creating force of the universe, omnipotent being, that which is greater than ourselves, who has many names. Olodumare Nkulukulu, Kwame Blafo Ashe, Mungu Onyeme Odomompo. Amen Ra Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Absolute privilege and honor, Prophet, as always, to have you on our panel. And hey, I'm loving the gowns that you men are wearing. I just love to see our men in the African attire. It's just so regal. It's kingly, it makes you look so majestic. I absolutely love it. And we've got Leader Bandaka in the background there. He's literally just finished his show on the Big G Galaxy Afiri, the only de-brainwashing station, and he will be joining us very, very shortly. In fact, I think I see he's ready backstage, so let's bring on our Leader Bandaka as well. Greetings, Leader. Hey, looking dapper as well.
Then I'm worried.
Giving
thanks and praises. Can you hear me, my sister?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. I'm giving thanks and praises unto Mwari Nyakusika, God, the creator of the universe, through Mudimu Mukuru, our great ancestors, for the blessing of being a part of the show this evening and to be a part of this August panel. And Sister Shanice, what can I say? You are indeed chosen for this moment. The work that you are doing in terms of your investigative journalism and the presentation of these powerful shows that you have been doing for some time now is really awesome. And we just pray that the Creator and the ancestors will continue to endow you with the skills, the intellect, and the energy to just keep going. So we say, Rumbid Sokunamwari Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai Mwari. Bless.
Tendai Mwari. Thank you so much, Leader Bandaka, for those words of encouragement. And let's go over to the chat, shall we, and see who we've got in our company. this evening. Family, we are going to bring on some of your comments. So if you're watching us, let us know where you're tuned in, what part of the world are you tuned in and watching us from. And we thank you so much for joining us for this evening's discussion in advance. Feel welcome to put your comments in the chat. And, you know, we're certainly trying to incorporate some of your comments into today's discussion. And if you've got any questions you want to ask, you can ask those questions in the chat as well. So we've got ANG in the house saying, good evening, Sister Shanice and the panel. I'm so happy to be here tonight. We are so happy to have you here tonight as well. We've got Bintu in the house. We've got Nubini in the house as well, saying greetings, Sister Shanice, and to all the powerful and so, yeah, to all powerful, rising up the panel. Emily is saying greetings to the family as well. We've got Ishipi Shakespeare in the house as well, saying greetings to myself and the panel, tuned in from the UKKK. We've got Blue Zodiac saying sunshine Shanice is looking like sunshine tonight. Yes, it's the color of the sun. By the way, this was made by my local Gambian tailor, and he's looking to do more business. So if you want some African attires made up here in the Gambia, you just need to send your measurements, and he can get them made up for you and put in a post to you wherever you are in the
please.
world. Hey, I'll be interviewing him at some point soon, so you'll be able to meet him, see some of his works, and get his contact details, all right? So I'll put your details his way, leader. So we want to rise up Poetical TV as well, locked in from London. We've got Bintu's locked in from Sierra Leone. Rising up the family. And we've got Mark Edwards, who's looking forward to this evening's show and discussion. We've got Africa Queen in the house as well, rising up the panel. Rise up Wilson as well, locked in from Tanzania, but located in Boston at the moment. We are delighted have your company. It's an absolute privilege, an absolute honor indeed. Okay, so let me just tell you, just remind you what the topic for discussion is this evening as you join us. You know, we are going to be talking about the, you know, very untimely passing and, you know, death of President John Magufuli, and also top, you know, 10 of his top state officials. You know, 10 top state officials dying within 1 month, in the month of February. So we're asking, coincidence or foul play? And I'm sure after today's discussion, you're going to see that, you know, there were so many giants that President Magufuli, you know, was actually fighting in order for him to just bring his resources back to Tanzania to make use of his people. It's probably going to be a case of who done it rather than, you know, was it done to him or not. But we're hoping that, you know, we're going to be exposing and finding out more about what's been going on in Tanzania. And I know that there's Leader Bandak is already calling for a full investigation, and we're going to be supporting him in that call as well. But let me first of all go around the panel and just ask for some opening remarks before we really get into, you know, the man himself, his achievements, etc. Let's get some opening remarks, starting with our brother Kwame Gonza from Ghana.
Oh, thank you very much, Sister Shanice. Once again, thank you, my elders, Brother Leader Mbandaka. And thank you, Prophet Imedute. Also, we have met a couple of times. Brother Leader Mbandaka, we met on one presentation with the Nation of Islam. Prophet Imedute, we have met a couple of times. Sister Shanice, we have met a couple of times. And also our audience who are watching us. We want to thank you very much. On this topic, this is a topic which is very interesting, but at the same time, I can say it is very sad because we lost a great man, but this is not something that is new. What has happened? I was discussing this with someone who was skeptical when I was saying that I see some foul play in the death of President Magufuli. And the person was saying, why do you say there's foul play? So I said that if something has happened to you for more than 1,000 times, and it is the same people who have been carrying out this, and you have been realizing maybe after 60 years that these people, they are the ones who have been having a hand in this kind of, you know, death, in this kind of untimely death, then you don't suspect, you know, anybody else. It's like, it's like, for example, if you have children and your children have been dying, and it is the devil, you know very well, there's a certain devil who has been killing your children, and he has killed like maybe 9 of them, and then the 10th one dies. Definitely you will have to suspect that it is that particular evil person who has come in and killed your person or your child, even if he may not be the one, but definitely you may find that after around many years or 10 years, you realize that it's the same person. I'll come to, for example, when you look at Nkrumah, when he was overthrown, during the time he was overthrown, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, we had the press, BBC going around, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, all these media houses, these, you know, conglomerates, these corporations, these media corporations, all of them, they were saying he was a dictator. He was making the people suffer in the country. The economy was declining. All these, you see, and immediately during that period, there was no suspicion of the CIA as people who played a role in the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But this information came out after. It came out after 60 years, you see, after 40, 50, 60 years. And they said that the CIA had a hand in the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. And actually, they were the masterminds. They didn't have a hand, but they were the mastermind, together with the MI6 of the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, the government, they reached an extent of saying that Kwame Nkrumah was making the Africans so much politically conscious. You see, he was making the Africans very proud. You see, so this is what they did. But this information comes to us after around 40 years after Nkrumah is gone and dead, 50, 60 years. It's the same thing when we go back to Martin Luther King Jr. It's the same thing which we see, that the FBI and the CIA, they didn't want the rise of a black messiah. It's the same thing we see with Malcolm X. Information came out this year that the FBI had a hand in the killing of Dr. You know, even though they were saying that it's the Nation of Islam who killed him. But information came out, it's the FBI. But when is it coming out, this information? This information is coming out of 30 years, 40 years. So if it is the same pattern that has been going on, even the young man, this gentleman, Chairman Fred Hampton, you see, the young man who was killed, who was of the Black Panther, the Chicago chapter, he was killed by the FBI, but they were saying they are not the ones who killed. They didn't kill him. You know, they said it was an accident. It was a shootout. They came to shoot inside his apartment where he was sleeping 99 times. And the only bullet which the people shot from, you know, from the building in Chicago when they are killing Hampton, just one bullet. So you can see that the pattern is the same. Now let us come to President Magufuli. This is a man who was healthy, okay? He's a man who's championing Africa. If we start mentioning the achievements of President Magufuli, even he doesn't need to tell you that he's a Pan-Africanist. First of all, when he became president, his tag, the tag which he always moves with on his coat, on when he's moving, is Africa. He has if you noticed him, he had the African map always on his coat as a tag here on his chest. So this is the first sign which people did not notice. He was showing you that he's so proud of being African. Now, what do these people want? These people, they don't want anyone who makes the Africans very proud, you know, makes the Africans to show them that they can be self-reliant. I'll take you back to Nkrumah. During Nkrumah's time, I think it was either it was Lyndon Johnson or the president that time after. Yeah, it was Lyndon Johnson after the death of JF Kennedy. It was Lyndon Johnson who took over. Lyndon Johnson, they said that they don't want another Cuba in Ghana. You see, because Kwame Nkrumah, they said that there's no black man who's doing so much to undermine the Western interests in Africa as Kwame Nkrumah. So he has to go. So this is the kind of thinking. So this is what Magufuli was doing. Magufuli, when he came, he was making the Africans proud, because Africans are always, you know, looking up to see if there is someone who can come to give us that pride, you know, we can hold on, so that we can hold on and be a proud people, because our pride has been crushed many, many times. You know, you can see how they mention Africa, you know, diseases and all these. You can see how they kill us in streets in the United States. You can see how, you know, President Trump talks, you know, how they talk about us, you know, in back doors when they are behind those closed doors, how they talk about Africans. You can see the disrespect they show the African leaders at the United Nations when they go there. Empty room, they are speaking as African leaders. When Trump comes to speak, the whole room is full. When a British Prime Minister comes to speak at the United Nations, you know, the United Nations conference room is full. But when African leaders come to speak, the place is empty when you look around. So this is the kind of disrespect. So we are always looking, yes, we are always looking for that one African leader who bring us our dignity, our pride, you see. So, and this is what Magufuli was trying to do. So on his accomplishments, I'll add on that, but let that be as the introduction. I'll add on that to expand more on the accomplishments of President Magufuli. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brilliant opening, my brother Kwame. Let me quickly whiz round and get to some opening remarks from our brother Leader Bandaka. Please take your mic off mute, brother Leader.
Yeah. Tendai Mwari, Rumbitso Kuna Mwari, Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. To the God of Africa be the glory for the life and the work and the legacy of our beloved, blessed, and powerful brother and President of Tanzania, Brother President Pombe Magufuli. To the God of Africa be the glory for the life force that soared through his being. To the Creator and to his ancestral lineage, we give thanks, we give praises for the blessed womb of his mother. We celebrate that sacred womb as we celebrate the loins and the seed of his father, and the combination, the joining together of his mother and father in divine conjugal union, and creating this African human being, this African who was instilled with so much love for his people, such a deep sense of Maatian principles, such a profound appreciation of Ubuntu, an African deep sense of African morality and African humanity that stood up so powerfully as the president of Tanzania and shone such a bold light across the African continent and throughout the African world. A bold light of African sovereignty, a bold light of African mastery over African destiny. So we sing praise songs to him this evening. We dance praise dances to him this evening, giving thanks and giving praises. We say again, Rumbidzo Kunamwari Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Young Brother Kwame Gonza, it's good to see you again. I just love your spirit. And I love the work that you are doing, beloved brother. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And may Mwari and Mudumukuru, the creator and the ancestors, continue to empower you in that work. Great to see you again, Prophet Kweku. Give thanks and praises for your presence. Tendai Mwari. There is an African saying. It comes from the Igbo people, I believe. And the saying goes that the anthill survives. The anthill survives so that the new grass will have the memory of the devastation of the savannah. The anthill survives so that the new grass has the memory of the devastation of the savannah. And just to break down that metaphor, what we got from brother, what we've had from brother Kwame and Gonza so far expresses the meaning of that metaphor of the grass hills surviving. This is not about grass hills and savannas and about ant hill and savannas and new grass. It's about African humanity and the value of history, the value of those who survive from one generation to another generation, from one devastation to another devastation, to pass on the knowledge of the devastation, to pass on the knowledge of the sojourns and the experiences of the generations. And so, beloved brothers and sisters, it is of vital importance that we put this question in the context of our African history. We can only understand it in the context of our African history. And we can also apply the words of Brother Magufuli himself, who in one speech he said, if there's anything bad that's going to happen to me because of Tanzania, let it happen. Listen to his words. If there's anything bad that's going to happen to me because of Tanzania, let it happen. But I will always stand for justice in all my life. I told you earlier, I decided to start an economic war. I decided to start an economic war. So he has put his activities as president of Tanzania in the context of war. He's giving us now a war analysis, and he's telling us that if he has to sacrifice life and limb, let it be so. But he is now he says he's waging war. I'm saying, I ask his forgiveness. I'm going to disagree with Pombe Magufuli. I'm going to say you didn't start a war. You didn't start a war. No, the war was started by our invaders, our conquerors, our oppressors, and you have raised our resistance to a higher level. That's what you did. You have raised our offense against the enemy to a higher level. You did not start this war.
Yes.
What you're trying to do is to end the war. I'm speaking now. I'm going to speak to the spirit of Pombe Magufuli and just beg his permission to just disagree with that semantic. I'm not going to be long, my sister. But then he goes on to say, an economic war is very bad. It's very bad, he says. The imperialists are not going to be happy about this. This is Baba Pombe Magufuli speaking. The imperialists are not going to be happy about this. There are so many African leaders, you know what happened to them. There are so many African leaders, you know what happened to them. So he's implying that the same might happen to him, because he's waging, he is raising up our resistance against the war that has been waged upon us by the imperialists. Is everybody with me? It's because their countries were rich in mineral resources and the imperialists wanted all their mineral wealth. Right now, we are waiting to reorganize some terms with some mining companies. But if they turn up late, I'm going to close all their mines. It's better we return these mines to our fellow Tanzanians who are willing to pay taxes rather than these big companies who don't want to pay taxes. Seems clear to me that Baba Pombe Magufuli was saying to us, they're going to come after me. But the fear of attack and death is not going to stop me from doing what is right by my people. Let me just say two things quickly and then I'll give way. Just to draw on a point which my young brother, Brother Kwame, made earlier on in relation to Kwame Nkrumah. And that information came out many years after Kwame Nkrumah's passing about the involvement of the CIA and British intelligence, MI6, etc., in his toppling, possibly his death. But we must remind ourselves that Kwame Nkrumah himself, 2 years before he was toppled in February 1966. In February 1964, he wrote a letter to Lyndon B. Johnson, the then president of America. And he accused the CIA of operating from within the embassy, the U.S. embassy, from behind the U.S. embassy, and they're sabotaging the development of Ghana and infiltrating his nation. He wrote to Lyndon B. Johnson, and Lyndon B. Johnson wrote back to him denying CIA involvement in destabilizing Ghana. So Kwame Nkrumah was aware even before he was toppled that the CIA was infiltrating and destabilizing his country. And finally, you also mentioned, Brother Kwame, about Fred Hampton and the assassination of Fred Hampton. Just to remind us that Mark Clark was also assassinated in that same pre-dawn raid. That bullet that Brother Kwame mentioned, the one bullet of the hundreds of bullets that went into the building, the one bullet that came out of the building came from the gun of Mark Clark. How did it come from the gun of Mark Clark? Mark Clark was shot while he was sitting with a gun on his lap. He was shot through the head. And just as a reflex action, his hand touched the trigger. The gun was on his lap. He died sitting down. He died sitting. And they shot him through the building. It went through his head. And it's just a reflex action that his hand touched the trigger. And that one bullet went off. So there was no shot fired in anger from that building in that pre-dawn raid. It was a complete massacre. And eventually, the state had to pay compensation to the families to show that there was no justification for the attack, but for the sake of assassinating young African leaders who were standing up for their people. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Okay.
Tendai Mwari, leader. Thank you so much for those open remarks. We're going to go straight over to Prophet. I've got an unstable connection. I hope it's not interfering too much. Bringing in Prophet Maduti for your opening remarks. Thank you.
Otep. You know, Maduba for Baba Wa. You know, the ancestors guide us with what we do today, you know, heal our ancestors. And we heal our ancestor, President Magufuli. They call him the bulldozer.
Mm.
And sometimes the spirit knows what's coming, you know. And the spirit moves you to do things. Sometimes we don't listen to it. But I am of the notion that Magufuli listened quite carefully to his spirit. And they call him the bulldozer because of the many different things that he was pushing through, the infrastructure that he was putting back into Tanzania. I always remember our elder Beanie Brown sitting me down one time when I went to Heathrow and africating me about when they went to Tanzania back in the days of Nyeri, and explained that Nyeri was able to siphon out the CIA and MI6 and them man there. And when you read the documentations from the CIA reports on Nyeri, they said they were a bit confused by him, or they could not influence him because, and considering that he had a Western education. President Magufuli says a speech, he says our founding fathers was not someone to be directed, right, to and be told to do. Those who devise these kinds of rules, you know, he's talking in terms of the lockdown, are used to making these directives that our founding fathers refused. He also said, referring to Tanzania's first leader, Julius Nyeri's habit of rejecting advice from Western nations. We don't need to have no whole heap of knowledge. To our sisters gone, we don't need to have no whole heap of knowledge to have basic common sense. One of my earliest teachers when I was about 20 years old said to me, he said, any black leader that you see the West is behind, that is the leader to watch. He said, any black leader that you see the West spread bad propaganda against, that is the leader to follow. We know that the Europeans need our resources. We are quite aware of that. And what Africa needs, and I think Magufuli was getting there, because one of the things you hear a lot of people saying is, look what he did in 5 years. And just like we were looking and speaking about the accomplishments that he had accomplished in those 5 years, our enemies was watching it. President Magufuli embarrassed other African leaders who has been there sitting in power for 30 years and don't do nothing. And he came in 5 years and initiated programs and completed programs. And as my beloved brother Mbandaka quite eloquently put, he was able to make companies pay the taxes that they owe. Not even Britain can get companies to pay the tax them when they move. Not even Britain can't get Amazon and Google and all them boy there for pay things. But Magufuli did. So he not only embarrassed African governments, he embarrassed European governments. Because you see, the people of the world is watching, innit? Now, you know the way that Europeans look at Africa and African governments. They look down on them. They think that they are better than our governments. they think that their government is not as corrupted as quite a few of the governments on the continent. So you imagine now, this one man comes and in 5 years has been able to achieve so much, and and to achieve it without borrowing money. Remember, this is the key. He achieved all of this without borrowing a penny. When the Chinese wanted him to sign some $10 billion deal, in fact, it was the president before that who was going to sign it. He said, you'd have to be a madman to sign that. These same people them that wanted him to sign deals, new deals, hadn't paid tax. So him doesn't embargo all of them things. And say you have to pay the back tax where you have before you get this. And then after you pay it, we are going to negotiate a new deal that is better for Tanzania. He found 30,000. Imagine this, 30,000 people working in the government that didn't exist, that was costing the Tanzanian government $190 million. He did this. So you imagine these people sitting down watching that he was able to get taxes from these conglomerate companies. And here is big bad Britain, big bad United States, and France that cannot get taxes from Google, Amazon, and all them people there. Don't you think that the people will be watching that and start questioning their own governments? Don't you think that the enemy was watching and saying, well, if him can do this in 5 years, we can't give him another 5. Remember, they tried to destabilize the last election. The election just done what they tell. When they couldn't win when he won the election outstandingly, they tried to use their propaganda machine now to spread rumors alongside traitors to say that he rigged the election. Now, I'm going to ask all the panel a question here, and even the people them that is watching. If you are the president, prime minister, or a leader of any kind that was doing everything to make your life better and your life had improved under this particular regime, would you want that regime to change? I ask the panel that question.
Rise up, Prophet. Thank you so much for your question there.
No, Mr. Shanice, I asked a question. I asked the panel a question, and I want to answer from the panel, everybody. If you had a regime that was ruling wherever you live, and your life had improved dramatically under that regime, and that regime was making you feel comfortable, your wages have risen, hospitals and schools and traveling and the general life of the people changed, would you want to change that regime? I ask you that, Brother Mbundaka, Brother Gonzo, and Sister Shanice. Yes. Would you want it to change?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I'll bring you in afterwards. I was about to say I stand with the people of Tanzania on that one. And of course, we would not want the regime to change, nor did they. That's why they voted him back in again. He was just about to start his second term. So he completed his first term, despite all of the negative publicity, propaganda campaign that the Western media was trying to whip up against him. The people of Tanzania, nevertheless, voted him back in again, which is exactly what I would have done. So, you know, he'd just been re-elected last year. He was about to start a second term. You know, we could spend the entire show today just talking about his achievements during his first term. So imagine, you know, if he had been given the opportunity to complete his second term. Wow, wow, wow. Even the World Bank actually raised the rating that they gave Tanzania from supposedly a low income to a middle income country. He was, I mean, the works that he was doing, for him, his priority was building the infrastructure within the country, because he recognized that in order for the country to become the industrialized nation that it was in his vision for Tanzania to become, then it would need to have a proper infrastructure in place so that the wheels of technology could turn very efficiently and very effectively. Hence, you know, the huge works that he was doing on the dam, the Julius Nyerere hydropower electricity that was going to give 3 times more level of electricity than Tanzania was getting at the moment. He was in negotiations with Egypt, because as soon as that hydroelectrical power plant was up and running, they were going to be coming in with their factories. And so they were looking to partner with Tanzania to help industrialize Tanzania. And there was so much that he was doing in terms of communications, in terms of the rail, in terms of the buses, in terms of all of the ports, the airline, everything that was needed to prepare the country for the industrial revolution that he had envisioned that was going to be taking place. And imagine being in that country at the time and seeing the improvement to all of this infrastructure, the roads, you know, that he was building. Prophet, of course, he would get my vote 100 times over to be re-elected. In fact, I think they wanted him to change the constitution, didn't they? So that he could remain in power. But, you know, as I've heard said before, he envisioned that if that had happened, then, and knowing that he was going to be taken out, the country could have been left with a president for life who maybe would have been undoing his works. Yes, let's go over to Brother Kwame. Let me ease out there. I hope that answered your question, Prophet.
Thank you very much, Sister Shanice. Prophet Medute's question is a very interesting question, and it's very huge. It's a very huge question. If I start talking about it now, I think we may finish at midnight. But I'll try to be as brief as possible. What Magufuli demonstrated, it shows us something about how society, which I've been saying about how society is organized. Society, I've always been saying in some of my papers which I've written, that society is organized from the political level. We have like a pyramid. Society is organized from the political level, and then we have the economic level at the bottom, and then at the bottom of the economy, we have the social organization of society. So whenever the political level of society is in order, things move at the speed of light. Economics move at the speed of light. The social, you know, the social conditions of the people, they improve very quickly. And these things have been demonstrated in Tanzania with President Magufuli, Dr. Magufuli's presidency. In just 5 years, if you look at the accomplishments he has done, when we go next door to Uganda, a president who has been there for almost 30 years, or we go to Cameroon, in 5 years, he has done more than these guys, what they have done, who have been there for 30 years, some of them 40 years, like if you go to Cameroon. Paul Biya, you don't see what he has been doing there for almost 40 years. So whenever we have order, we have things moving well at the political level, then the economics will be okay. Then the social order, you know, the social level of society will be in a very good condition. So what did the imperialists do? The imperialists, when they came, they captured our politics. because they know this is where everything happens. I would like to remind people about a document which was written by the, I think it was around 1978, a document. That document is called the Memoranda, National Security Memoranda 46. It was written, the document was written by the, I think it's the FBI, to check the connection between the Africans on the continent and the Africans in the diaspora in the United States. And they want to interrupt this connection so that they don't work together, the Africans in the diaspora and the Africans on the continent. But in that document also, they said that they want to make sure that the civil rights movement in the United States does not concentrate its efforts on the political level, on political demands. They should concentrate on the economic demands and the social, demands, and they should be around there because they know that at the political level, this is where everything happens. And this is what Magufuli, demonstrated, that whenever you sit in the political, whenever you sit at the political level, you can move things very quickly, urgently. You see, and this is where the Africans have been barred from. We have been barred from reaching the political level. And you see that our continent has been filled with the puppets so that we, the Africans, cannot get our good leaders in to be able to speed up the process of the reconstruction of Africa. So I see that this is where we have to find a solution for. And I also want to remind people about what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said in one statement that, "Seek ye first the political kingdom, and all other things shall be added unto you." So this is what he meant. Definitely what Magufuli was doing. This is what Dr. Nkrumah said, that seek ye first the political kingdom, and all the other things shall be added unto you. And he said that not the other way around, because the economic, the economic kingdom and the social order of society comes from the political level. And he said that it is not the other way around, that that political level, the organization of politics is supposed to come from economics. That is not the way it is supposed to be. Because at the political level, that's where we control all the resources of the nation. You have the control of the resources underground, the human resources. You have exposure to unlimited resources. So this is what Dr. Magufuli, and President Magufuli demonstrated. So Nkrumah wanted that Africa should evolve. This has been my thinking ever since when I was young. I've been asking myself a question: why term limits? This is where the question of term limits comes in. Even though President Magufuli has demonstrated something, but there is also something which I want to point out here around term limits. It is not necessarily that term limits are the ones which bring about good governance in a country. I'll give you an example. An example is China. Another example is Singapore. Another example is South Korea. All these countries, by the time they developed, their leaders were there for almost 30 years. So it is not necessarily that term limits. People like Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore ruled the country for 30 years. And by the time he removed his hands, things were good and he was able to relinquish. The same thing with China and all the other. Even when you look at countries like the United States, by the time it ascended into superpower dome and it has accumulated capital, it was not a democracy. It's the same thing with Britain. It's the same thing with France. It's the same thing with Germany. All these were dictatorships before they became economic superpowers. There was no term limits in those countries. So this fog which has been put on the Africans, that it is supposed to be term limits, or that we are supposed to adopt a political system from the West, we have to start challenging it with firmness. We have to be very firm in challenging this kind of, brainwashing, this kind of foolery, this kind of lies, these lies which have been planted on the Africans, that whatever the West tells us is what we are supposed to take. From politics, economics, and the social organization of society, culture, education, in every area of organization of society, we are supposed to challenge and reject. Is the same thing which Nkrumah, when I go back to Nkrumah, he said that we will look at the West and we will look at the East. In all these, we will pick what is good for us, and what is not beneficial to us, we will reject it. So this is the mindset we are supposed to come with. And this is the mindset which President Magufuli brought to the table. Whether it comes to vaccine, he said we will examine our local remedies. We will examine our local medicine first. We will examine the African medicine, indigenous, first. When it comes to economic policies, we will make our own economic policies. Okay? It is until they have failed, then we will come to you. When it comes to the politics, we should do the same. So if we have a government which is delivering, like what Magufuli was doing, such a government deserves to be there, even for the next 40 or 50 years. Magufuli, people like Magufuli should be in power and rule. They should rule and advance, because Africa is far behind. Africa is far behind. And what we need now, we need rapid industrialization, rapid development. So when we get a chance and we get a leader like Magufuli, people like Kwame Nkrumah, you see, these type of leaders, when you get them and you put them there, you should leave them there to run the continent, run the country, moreover, run the whole continent at the speed of light, because we don't have time. We really don't have time. We are behind everyone. We are 3 industrial revolutions behind everyone in the world. 3 industrial revolutions. We have not caught up anywhere. So we really don't have time of negotiating when we have a good leader like this. This man has been, when he came to power, within 2 years, 2017, immediately, they said Magufuli's reforms in the mining sector are a political master class. You see, they are a master class in political maneuvering. You see, these are headlines in 2017, just 2 years within power. So these leaders, normally, we are able to recognize them when they have come. Immediately in 1 or 2 years, we are able to recognize these leaders when they have come. But what has been detrimental to us as a people, as African people, that we have not been able to protect these leaders quickly. But whenever they come, we recognize them when they have come. Within 2 years, just 2 years, the headlines started coming out. They said Magufuli is a man of the time and captures attention. Within 2 years, this is the Mining Journal, one website in December 2017, which is, I'm reading on the internet here. So you can see that there is need to protect these type of people, and you give them as much time as they need to correct, you know, the political order in the country, the economic order in the country, the social order, to improve the people's lives. Can you imagine that he was able to lift the country out of the you know, underdeveloped to second, you know, to middle income status in the heat of coronavirus, when people were shutting down the economies? You know, economies are sliding backwards, economies are contracting, but Tanzania was rising, you know, from an underdeveloped to a middle class status income, because he said we are not going to close down the country. It is not scientific, because he saw that it's not scientific. This kind of fear which was planted in people, which was pushed into people, he said we are not going to accommodate this kind of fear. This fear will not take it. He said that what should we do about our railways which we are building, our roads which we are building? If we close down, then what are our people going to do? All the work will be lost. We are building railways, we are building dams. You see, we are building roads, we are building, you know, bus stations. So all this infrastructure. So for now, let me stop there. But my answer to Prophet Medute's question, I think, is that, as Kwame Nkrumah said, Africa has to evolve its own political system, which is far removed from the current rotten, corrupt, and fascist political system which is being imposed on Africa. Of voting, nothing is happening, and we vote after 4 years, 5 years, nothing is happening, and the same, you know, fools who are rotating around in different parties and doing the same things. So Africa has to evolve its own political system, just as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said. Thank you very much for now.
Thank you so much, Brother Kwame, for that response. So yeah, Prophet, we are both in agreement so far. Magufuli all the way. Over to Leader Bandaka with the same question from our Brother Prophet. And before you come in, I just want to thank, looks as though we've been given a donation by the looks of it of $100. Want to thank you so much for that. That's a first. Wow, absolutely awesome. Thanks for supporting the works. One love. Leader Bandaka.
Tendai Mwari, all offerings gratefully received. We give thanks for that African who has, you know, made that contribution. Wonderful, wonderful. You know, more of that, please. Tendai Mwari. Truly, it has been said by wise ones who came before us that wisdom is found in the simplest of places, in the nick of time. Wisdom is found in the simplest of places, in the nick of time. I'm 58 years of age. I was about to say 48 years of age. I'm 58 years of age.
It's like a whole decade.
I was going to rob myself of 10 years of knowledge and wisdom, but there you go. I have never voted in an election. I've never voted in this country. I've never voted in Jamaica in an election. If I was living in Tanzania, however, under the leadership and inspiration, may I add, of Pombe Magufuli, I dare say I would have, and I was eligible to vote, I dare say I would have voted for the first time in my entire life, because there would have been a reason to vote. I say again, wisdom is found in the simplest of places, in the nick of time. My brother Kwame, the power of your wisdom that you have displayed this evening is to be found in the simplicity of your analysis. And you have prayed on the wisdom of the Osagefo, Kwame Nkrumah, who said to us, seek ye first the political kingdom, and then all other things shall be added unto you. And for the Osagefo, the main focus of those words was to impress upon our people that the politics, we have to master the politics before we can get the economics right. Because politics is the art and science of power acquisition and nation building. It is in the context of the practicing of the art and science of nation building, of power acquisition and nation building, that you determine your economic policy. Because your economic policy must be geared towards nation building. If you don't master the art of nation building, then you cannot determine an economic policy that will enable the building of your nation. And this is where we have some challenges on the African continent, because the nature of African politics as it is presently is not conducive to African nation building. And yet, we believe that the economic activities that may display some growth in GDP in certain countries is an indication that indeed our continent is rising economically. When we look at the political system, when we look at the political structure, we see that the progressive leaders, the progressive exponents of the art and science of power acquisition and nation building, that generation has been almost totally obliterated. Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Touré of Guinea, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Patrice Lumumba of the Congo, Sekou Touré of Guinea, Modibo Keita of Mali, Samora Machel of Mozambique, Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, Amilcar Cabral of Guinea-Bissau, Alphonse Masamba Deba of Congo Brazzaville, and we could just go on and on. Bartolome Boganda of the Central African Republic, and we could go on and on and on. A whole generation, yeah. John Garang of South Sudan, all of them either assassinated or toppled, exiled, whatever. And then in their places have been put stool pigeon puppets of our enslavers, puppets of our colonizers, to carry on and to promote and protect their imperialist interests. So what we have seen since so-called independence is that good leaders and good governments die young. Bad leaders, sellout leaders, live forever. And some of them reincarnate in the form of their sons. Omar Bongo of Gabon, his son now, Ali Bongo, is now the president. We have Akufo-Addo of Ghana. His father, Edward Akufo-Addo, was one of the sellouts. You're Ghanaian, Brother Kwame?
Yes. No, I'm from Uganda, but I have all the history, and he okay. His father was one of the people who gave Dr. Kwame Nkrumah problems, a lot of problems, and they were one of the sellouts. And if you look at even the party which he belongs to, that is the same party which overthrew Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That is the group. So they just pretend when they go on the international stage that they represent Africa, but in the actual sense, what they are doing economically is Western. Is you know, they are towing to the system, to the Western system. Whatever they tell them is what they are doing. Borrowing. You can see that there's no fundamental transformation that is going on in Ghana when you look at the country. We have a car manufacturing company called Kantanka. Kantanka needed about $100 million so that he can, you know, ramp up the production of cars in Ghana, maybe even start manufacturing engines and all the other things in Ghana. Ghana has a glass manufacturing factory which Nkrumah started. Those things, when these people came to power, they collapsed them. But this company needed around $100 million that they want to ramp up production and start manufacturing a lot of things in Ghana instead of, you know, bringing things from China and assembling them here. But what this government did in Ghana, they went to bring Volkswagen, Toyota, and other European countries to come to Ghana and manufacture. I mean, assemble, not even manufacture.
Assemble,
assemble. Ghana. Okay, and not even, they are not bringing the latest technology like electric cars. They are bringing expired technology that has been rejected by the West, has been rejected in China, has been rejected in Europe, and been rejected in Japan, has been rejected in America. The engine cars is a technology which is outdated now, because hydrocarbon is a source of fuel that has been polluting the environment for a very long time now. It has been rejected, and it's technology which is old. So this is the technology they are bringing in Ghana, and then you are helping them to collapse, you know, an indigenous automobile company. I always say that if this automobile company in Ghana was given support, even the same automobile company like which is in Nigeria, if it was given support, they start manufacturing things here, engines, everything, they manufacture it here. You have employment. Now you base in Ghana and Nigeria, you go around the African continent and you lobby other African governments to come and buy cars from Kantanka, you see, and Innocent from Nigeria. So by the time you send your minister of foreign affairs around the African continent, when they come back to Ghana, they have more than maybe 10,000 orders of cars around the African continent, 54 nations. Okay, you don't need to go and bring Volkswagen to Ghana. You don't need to go and bring Nissan and Toyota to Ghana to assemble cars in Ghana. You already have the market. You have grown your own automobile company. You see, and the other companies can come up. It's the same thing with Nigeria. So this is the mentality of the neo-colonial, mindset. This is the neo-colonial mindset, and many times some of them, they appear as if they are working, and they get praise and what, but check their economic policies. You see, these are people who allowed the United States to set up a military base at the major airport. This is you allowing the country to be colonized. So that is the mindset, and it's not only in Ghana. It's the same problem we have in South Africa. It's the same problem we have in Kenya. It's the same problem we have in. So I'm not pointing out Ghana because it's the only place which is doing this, but it's the same problem we have in Uganda. And Magufuli was trying to get rid of these problems. So the same problems. France is causing a lot of problems in all over West Africa. This is what France, one of the most brutal imperialists, which are devastating our continent. So these are the problems which we have to face as a people, as Africans. And say we have to sit down on the table and get a political solution to this problem. So that political solution should come with all options. All options. I know a lot of people fear when we talk about this and that. We don't want to take up guns. We don't want violence and what. The rescue of the continent. Let me tell you something. This continent of Africa alone, minus our people who are being killed, in the United States and all over the other parts of the world in Europe. This continent of Africa has lost, because of the failure to unify the continent, as Nkrumah said in 1963, we have lost more than 9 million people, a total of 9 million people, to senseless wars because of the failure to unite. There was in Biafra war in Nigeria, the Rwanda genocide, over 1 million people. Then Biafra war we lost over 2 million people. That senseless war, which was between Total and Shell, companies which don't belong to Africa, because they were fighting over the resources on the continent. They want to divide Nigeria so that they can mine the fuel. I think it was between Total. That war was between Total and either Shell, and they were financing and bringing weapons. We have the diamonds, Sierra Leone. All these wars, we have lost countless people. The war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So all this is the failure to unify our continent. So we have to sit down as African people, not the political class. The current political class, we have to write it off. We have to write off this political class which we have now. Whether in which political party, regardless of the political party they belong to, we have to write it off. And we have to sit down as African people, as Pan-Africans, we have to start with the Pan-Africans, because in all ages, in all our liberation, scenarios, in all our liberation movements, it has been the Pan-Africans who have been at the forefront of crafting a solution for the continent, whether be it in Haiti, whether be it, Marcus Garvey, whether be it, the Pan-African Congress in Manchester, George Padimo, Kwame Nkrumah, the Pan-Africanists, Amy Ashwood Garvey. These people are the ones who have been at the forefront of crafting a solution. So the Pan-Africans have to sit down, and the Africans, as a people, we have to find a political solution to the problems which we have right now and push that solution, consistently, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13 years, consistently, until we break the yoke of neocolonialism and the people who are perpetrating it on this continent.
Absolutely, Brother Kwame. And I think, that was just what was so pertinent about the works of Dr. Magufuli. He was actually demonstrating to all of Africa and all the African leaders that if they take control of their country's resources, if they actually root out corruption within the public sector, corruption within the private sector, the corporations that are evading taxes, that have been controlling the economy, taking so much out and putting in their tax havens rather than giving back to the country the profits and the shares that they're supposed to. If they take control of all of that, they've got the money that they need to bring about the changes that the people of the country, so desperately deserve. And I think that's what, was really unique about Magufuli. What he demonstrated is that it can be done. And he exposed as well and showed the whole of Africa where corruption lies. That corruption lies within their civil servants' salary budget. That corruption lies, within the corporations that are meant to be paying them certain levies and certain taxes and are not doing so, are evading invoices, evading having to make those payments through their invoices. I'm just going to hand back in a second. I'm going to quickly just bring in something from Aid in Reverse that always sticks out for me. And I think, this is something that I believe President Magufuli was fully aware of, as well as the president, which helped to inform and shape, the works that he was doing. So there's an article that was written about aid in reverse, because, the idea of the West giving aid to Africa is that, the West is so generous. It's actually, providing money and resources and help the so-called poor, impoverished country of Africa. And, when this report was done, it was said that they actually gave 125 billion in aid each year. That's roughly how much they were giving each year, as a goodwill gesture to Africa. But when this US-based Financial Integrity Center actually did their research, they actually started tallying up all of the finances that the corporations that do business in Africa should have been paying to Africa. And when they totaled it all up, they calculated in 2012, with the data that they had, that developing countries had actually received a total of 1.3 trillion, including all the aid, all the investments, all the income abroad. But in the same year, those same so-called developing countries, that's African countries, actually paid the so-called developed world, the Western world, 3.3 trillion. That's 2 trillion more they'd actually taken out of Africa than was being put in aid. And then on top of that, they actually honed into, how some of these countries were evading actually paying Africa the money that Africa was due. So it said here that developing countries have forked out over 4.2 trillion in interest payments. That was since 1980 alone. And direct transfer they were taking out and putting into the banks, basically just going around Africa's banking and economic structures. And as Leader was saying, if we don't take a grip of nation building and what that actually entails in terms of managing your foreign corporations, your banking system and everything else, then all that you would try to do, maybe as a leader, would fail. And that's what's happening. A lot of these African governments just do not have control of all of the mechanism, the mechanics and the institutions and that actually you need to have control of in order to build your nation. And this article went on to say that by far the biggest chunk of the outflows has to do with the unrecorded and usually illicit capital flight, and that this amounted to a loss to the continent of 13.4 trillion through unrecorded capital flight. 13.4 trillion. Well, most African governments ought to be looking like Magufuli was looking to see where these unrecorded outflows were taking place within their own country. And President Magufuli actually found that a lot of these illicit outflows was going out of the country through these mining corporations. And he honed in on them. And they didn't like it, but it actually brought in a huge amount of money for his country and probably, made him enemies as well. I'm going to home in on a bit more on that in a little while, but I want to go back around, you know, over to the guests so that they've got the opportunity, you know, to come in on the discussion. So if I can bring in Prophet Maduti, and then we will go back to Leader Bandaka, who I think was still mid-flow when you brought in our brother. But Prophet, you asked a question a little while ago. God, you got to pass the baton, God.
Yeah, let brother,
Go ahead.
brother Mandaka, let him land on what he was saying, because brother Kwame came in and he didn't get to finish what he's saying. So let brother leader finish what he's going to say, and then I'll come back. Yeah, go on, brother Mandaka.
Leader Bandaka.
Tendai Mari, giving thanks and praises. I think, Brother Kwame, because of your name, I thought you were Ghanaian, the name Kwame. But I think he gave a brilliant example of why, you know, political autonomy has to precede economic autonomy, because it is through the political system that we determine the economic system. It is through the machinations of politics that we design the nation that we want to build. It's not through economics. Economics is a component of the process of nation building. And sometimes I think we are focused on economics in a vacuum. Anything that we discuss outside the context, and in fact, our erudite warrior scholar, Baba John Henry Clark, used to say, whatever it is that we do in the name of liberation, if it does not involve nation building, we are wasting our time. We are wasting our time. Now, when I started talking about, in fact, I mentioned Omar Bongo, who was president of Gabon for 42 years. And then he died. And his son, this is what I mean by reincarnation, his son became the president. Yeah. And these are all puppets of France. They were very favorable to France, so they lived forever. Kwame Nkrumah was toppled. Yeah. Patrice Lumumba didn't even last a year. Did you hear what I said? Patrice Lumumba did not even last a year. And my sense from having studied Patrice Lumumba extensively is that he was destined to be the most powerful thing coming out of the African continent. And because he was in the Congo, that geological miracle in the heart of Africa, in terms of the Congo's tremendous strategic wealth and its strategic location in the center of the African continent. And he was going to put the resources of the Congo to the liberation of the African continent. He said, this earth, this part of the world, Africa, is ours. And we are, in fact, its only masters. He said, we will not stop until every blade of grass, every particle of dust is firmly fixed in the hands of the black man and the black woman. Just think about that for a moment. Just think. He said he's going to make the Congo a radiant light for the entire African continent. And he was working with the Osagifo. In fact, he was a protege of the Osagifo Kwame Nkrumah. Powerful things would have happened on the African continent. They feared him more than they feared anybody else in that moment, and they snuffed him out in no time. And who did they put in his place? Mobutu. How long did Mobutu last? 32 years. Until the people got fed up of him. and he became an embarrassment to France. But who do we have in the Congo now? Mobutu was a sellout of the most nasty kind. But he also had people working with him. One of the persons he had working with him is the father of the president of the present president of the Congo, Tshisekedi. What is he going to do but perpetuate the practices of his father? What's Akufo-Addo going to do but perpetuate the sellout practices of his father? That crop of misleaders. Actually, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, before he was toppled, there were 7 assassination attempts on his life. 7 assassination attempts. And he says that the so-called Big Six, Brother Kwame is correct when he says the present party that is ruling Ghana, that party, the NPP, is really an evolution of the United Gold Coast Convention. That was a party that J.B. Dankwa, who was the biggest rival to Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, he is also the grand uncle of Akufo-Addo. In fact, he has his name. His name is Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So not just his father, but his grand uncle. And one of his uncles, 3 members of the Big Six that had sent for Nkrumah and who had started the UGCC, 3 of them were family. 3 of them are uncle, father, and grand uncle of Akufo-Addo. The NPP is the most right-wing party of Ghana, and that is the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area. You see the problem we have on the African continent? We have some serious problems because the skewed politics that we have on the African continent today is not going to deliver for us the economic liberation that we think is going to come with the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is symbol without substance. You see, and that is why, look even at Togo, the present president of Togo, yes, for the Nazimbe, his father was actually the assassin in chief who snuffed out Sylvanus Olympio. He murdered Sylvanus Olympio and then became president. Then became president of Togo and remained for nearly 40 years. His son is now the president of Togo. That is the challenge we have on the African continent. I mentioned earlier on Masamba Deba of Congo Brazzaville. That is the Republic of Congo, Congo Brazzaville. That's not the Democratic Republic of Congo, but Congo Brazzaville. Yes? The present president of Congo Brazzaville assassinated that Pan-African leader. He is an assassin. Just like Mobutu was an assassin. He is also an assassin. So we have all these assassins of progressive African leaders who have become African leaders. Ngweso is an assassin, but he's a leader of an African country. How are they going to deliver economic freedom for Africans when they are working? They have killed, they have shed African blood of progressive, populist African leaders in the interest of their masters. And it's in that context that we must understand why some of us are very, very suspicious about the untimely death of Baba Pombe Magufuli, especially after he himself gave us a prediction that they were coming after him. We cannot be so lazy-minded that we just accept that he died of natural causes. Michael Jackson, they said, died of a heart attack. Remember? That was what the coroner report returned. His family would not accept it. And what did they do? They engaged their own medical person to do an autopsy. And they found, yes, he died of a heart attack, but it was artificially induced. It was a result of him, it was drug induced. And as a result of that, there was a court case, and Dr. Conrad Murray was convicted for the administering an overdose of a drug to Michael Jackson that caused his life. But the family is saying that as far as they're concerned, Conrad Murray was the fall guy. And there were bigger forces behind what Conrad Murray did. Indeed, Michael Jackson himself said that there were powerful forces that were coming after him. But we didn't hear it. We did not hear it. The grandson of Papa Omowale Malcolm X, who was battered to death like a wild animal. When I talk about this, it really hurts me. The grandson of a martyr, someone who took 16 bullets for African liberation, starts to look like his grandfather, sound like his grandfather, is battered to death in Mexico, beaten, clubbed, and left by a roadside. But he wrote an open letter before all of this happened and told us that the CIA and what's the other one called? The FBI were trailing him. That he felt his life was in danger. And he said, well, what would we do? What are we going to do to protect him? What are we going to do if they kill him? Or when they kill him? And we did nothing. We did nothing. Now we've got to do some serious thinking. Do we want powerful African leaders on the African continent? Do we want leaders to stand up for African liberation? Do we want a replica of Pombe Magufuli going forward? But how are we going to protect those leaders? History tells us that once they stand up to defend African integrity, defend African humanity, their fate is sealed. What is our response to that? And if Pombe Magufuli dies, and they say he died of natural causes, are we just going to sit back and accept that? Or are we going to push and probe for truth? Are we going to keep pushing and probing? What are we going to do, Africans? Because historically, we just let things drift. Let me pause there, Sister Shanice. The spirit riding me at the moment, and I know I'll go on. But it's very, very painful. And we need to we can't be asking African leaders to stand up and be counted if we are not prepared to stand up for them who are prepared to lay down. Any African leader stands up and speaks out and defends African interests, has made a decision to sacrifice their life for our liberation. Will we stand up for those who are prepared to lay down their lives for us? Will we even prosecute this issue of how did Pombe Magufuli really die? Will we even be bothered to that? Or are we going to engage in platitudes? Pombe Magufuli, he was great, he was wonderful, he did this, he did that, and then we close the meeting and we go home. And we tell ourselves we've done something good by Pombe Magufuli. No, we haven't. No, we haven't. We must push and we must probe for information. We must not accept that he died by natural causes when we know these people have all kind of sophisticated way of taking people out and making it look like natural causes. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Wow. feeling the pain right now. Let me go straight over to Prophet before I
Yes.
over to you, Prophet Magufuli.
Yes, so Tip, thank you very much, Brother Mbadaka and Brother Kwame. You know, Thomas Sankara said that, you know, you cannot carry out a fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. You understand what I'm saying? Meaning that, you know, you've got to change things fundamentally. And so in the beginning, the people that might not like it. And, you know, MAGA fully knew they were coming for him. He said it himself. He says, one day you will remember me. And I know one day you will remember me, not for the bad things that I've done, but for the good things that I've done. Because I've sacrificed my life for the poor in Tanzania. You understand what I'm saying? So those, you know, these are quotes from people who they see it coming. They know. But he was brave enough to stand up and be counted. I don't agree that we just leave it like that, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be here saying and doing what we're doing. We are very watched by the authorities here, and we know their arms are long. And there's a lot of people who look like us, our beloved brother, that would not say the things that you have said or any of us have said on this platform. We're going out to the world. So I don't agree with that. What I think one of the places that we go wrong, and we were speaking about this on Galaxy, and we spoke about it on shows before. We need to get a serious intelligence organization in Africa that is secure and cannot move. Listen, I know that Brother Mbindaka have problems with Colonel Gaddafi. But the reason why they attacked Colonel Gaddafi, because they couldn't get into him in a sanctum. He had a serious shield around him. And our leaders need to do that. And I think Magufuli was doing that. That's why they take out 10 people then before them lick him down. Remember, you know, that to clear the path to get to him. I said on previous show, we will know who the people are the minute they change the things that he put in place. Now, from information that I've acquired, yeah, this new president, this woman, has now said that wearing a mask is mandatory. That is very interesting. And I did some research on that, sister. But it's not her you have to watch out for, it's her husband. Because her husband actually works with the WHO.
What?
You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we have to be very careful about people. In fact, she did training with the WHO as well and studied at university levels and things like that. So we have to be very mindful of a lot of these people then who's coming to take over. But we must get our intelligence par excellence alongside the politics. You understand me, I said? And nation building. Because you cannot protect your nation if your nation is continually getting infiltrated. There was a documentary on the late Cuban president Castro. They said 500 ways to kill Castro because they attempted over that time, and the CIA tells you that they attempted to kill him how many times, but couldn't get him. Try for poison him. You know why? Because them man, their inner sanctum was so secure they could not be penetrated. You understand what I'm saying to you? We have got the Europeans has been in Africa for centuries, millenniums. They're so intertwined in our societies.
Yes.
They have brain dirtied our people to the point that our people then will give you up for this dollar say or that naira. You understand what I'm saying to you? So our intelligence, our military have to have a sense of patriotism. They have to be, they have to be fanatical patrons of them country. You understand what I say? Because if you don't do that, if you don't have that, then you ain't got nothing. All this talk we're talking don't mean nothing if we can't defend ourselves. I learned this from studying the ancient Cometians and wider society that was so advanced in terms of astrological mapping of the stars and medication and things, allowed barbarians who they took out of the caves to destroy them. Yes, the gun played a big part, but let me tell you something now. The greatest weapon our enemies have, and this is not my quote, yeah, this is Steve Biko quote, the greatest weapon the enemy have is the minds of the oppressed people.
That's right.
Because them, let me tell you from now, no white boy. And Brother Mundaka was naming all these people, and no white boy no come kill them. And no white boy and betray Marcus. Agent 999 was a black man. And a white boy kill Malcolm. Yeah? And me can tell you, say, and then a white boy, a woman, kill President Magufuli. Yes, they are behind it, and we must never let them off the hook. They are the instigators, the organizers, the perpetrators. They don't ever pull the trigger these days because they present themselves on the world as this decent, democratic, civilized, and all this type of stuff. But the reality is this: is we the ones who do. They couldn't have never kidnapped so much of us out of Africa if they never had help by other Africans. They could have never kept us in suppression for so long if they didn't have the help of other Africans. When we were planning on the concentration camp to tear down and burn down the plantation and chop up the boy them, right? Our people will look like we go betray away. Yeah? That's what we have to get done first. We know it's them killing. We don't need no evidence. Our ancestors tell us that. We know how them do it. We just don't have the proof yet. That proof might come out 60 years from now. But that's what they do. 60 years down the road. And the reason why they put out this information is to give the impression that, oh, those governments was like that, but we're different now because we're giving you the information to show you that, they were this, but we're not like that. They're like that. They're innately like that. You understand what I'm saying to you? So until we get our intelligence, and Marcus Garvey told us it, he said, train your children in the higher sciences. Because the people them that control science and technology will be the people them that run things. So Magufuli knew they were coming from him. That's why he said what he said. Because he knew they were coming from him. He knew his time was up. That's why he was running so fast. Let me say, he said, one day you will remember me. And not for the bad things that I've done, but the good deeds that I have done. Because I have sacrificed my life for the poor Tanzanians. him say him was poor. Him grew up on a farm. Yeah, where him have to graze cow and milk cow. So him grew up from that kind of humble beginnings. And his whole mission was to look after poor people. You understand me? Because what? Because the treasonous people them steal the money out of Africa every single second. And they put them in banks in the West, and the West is complicit with it because they know the money they're there. So when they want to turn around and say the leaders them is corrupt, yeah, they're corrupt because you corrupt them. You don't have to take their money, but you take it. Eh? How is it you're buying oil from a country, but you're putting it in the president account? You tell me say those countries don't have an account specific for the money we are coming in, right? And how is it that our beloved ancestor, President Magufuli, was able, without armies, without threatening war, to say, well, listen, you see, if you don't pay for our things, you're not get it in a brethren. They wanted it and they paid because they know even though they paid that money they owe, it was little and nothing. They were getting it for anyway. That's why I'm saying you're going to pay that the money and then we're going to renegotiate. So we don't need no evidence. We know. And I think that all those leaders that Brother Mundaka mentioned that was murdered is evidence enough for us to know is them do it. We don't have to prove, we can't prove it yet, but there should be an investigation. But then again, who's going to investigate it? Because we don't know, say, if them are going to infiltrate that and do all them something. So maybe we need to revert forward to our ancestral way of dealing with things. We just know, we feel it. That is for evidence. We don't need no pathologists and all them something there. For go do no autopsy and them something there. We don't know how them do it already. Yeah, one and one or two, simple things. Yeah, and if you not add them, it's 11. So we don't need them for telling nothing. We know how them do it. What we need to do, we need to Africate the future in science and technology and a defense system par excellence. Yeah, a spiritual defense system, a cultural defense system, an economical defense system, an Africational defense system, a political defense system, and a military defense system. That's what we need to do. And that's what we need to organize. Because look, all we are going in, if them want to lick we way, them lick we way. If them lick me way, Mbundaka way, you way, and Brother Kwame way, who's gonna come and avenge us? So what we have to do, and what I hope that Magufuli did, was he trained enough of those young people in his philosophical way of thinking that when the time comes and they take that position, they will reignite the machine that will elevate not only Tanzania, but all the other African countries. And I mean all of them from our enemies. All of them. Because we got serious invaders in Mama Africa, sitting down there doing what they want, etc. You understand me I say? So intelligence is the key.
Absolutely.
And I'll leave it this. Okay.
Rise up, prophet, Hotep. And yes, there are powerful backers, powerful forces that are protecting.
I think you're blocking out, Sister Shanice.
You're not hearing me?
Brother Kwame, you want to come in?
You're not hearing? Have I frozen?
You want to come in, Brother Kwame?
Okay, my
I mean, we got
connection
about
might be poor.
I
Is my
can hear.
connection poor? You know,
15 minutes left.
No, you can go
Shanice,
ahead.
we can't hear you. Maybe you're on mute.
No, we can hear her. I can hear Sister
No, I'm
Shanice.
not
Can't
on
hear you.
mute.
Can you hear her, Kwame?
Okay, great.
Yes, I can hear her.
Can you hear her?
Yes,
Yes.
you're hearing me. I'm hearing Kwame.
Can you hear her, brother leader?
Leader Bandako, are you hearing me okay?
Me can't hear her. Something wrong.
Leader, are you hearing me?
I can hear
Okay, let
everyone.
me press ahead. Let me know in the chat.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I can
everyone's
hear
saying
you.
they can hear me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I mean, Brother Prophet was talking about, we just know that they took him out. And how did they take him out? They claim it was a heart attack. And I actually came across an article that I just want to quickly touch on. It was in the military, usmilitary.com, on the usmilitary.com website. And it was actually talking about the CIA's secret heart attack gun. Now, it might sound like something new, but it's not new. Yeah, now it says here, let me just quickly read. A CIA secret weapon used for assassination shoots a small poison dart to cause a heart attack, as explained in congressional testimony in the video. And this dart from this secret CIA weapon can actually penetrate clothing and leave nothing but a tiny dot on the skin. And on penetration, the deadly dart of the deadly individual targeted for assassination may feel as though they've been bitten by a mosquito, or may not feel anything at all. And the poisonous dart completely disintegrates upon entering the target. The lethal poison then rapidly enters the bloodstream, causing a heart attack. Once the damage is done, the poison denatures quickly, so that an autopsy is very unlikely to detect that the heart attack resulted from anything other than natural causes. Yeah, so, and they have had this weapon for decades. So they have, I'm sure, perfected that weapon by now as well. And, you know, this sort of information is available now. That's right. From the 1970s, Rise Up Prophet. This has been around since the 1970s. It's now available, you know, on the internet for information as part of the, you know, CIA information that's now available for public viewing. And it also, you can also find there information from top secret CIA files that was talking about a covert operation in Tanzania. And basically, the United States Intelligence Agency, because they'd made public all of these pages and declassified it, you can actually go now and find out how they were actually going about spying on Tanzania and the history of that. And Prophet already talked about, you know, some of the discussions that they were having at the time. They were spying on our brother, what's his name, Prophet?
Nyerere.
Julius
Nyerere.
Nyerere.
Yeah, Julius Nyerere.
That's they were spying on him, and they were. Yes, thank you very much, Prophet. And files were showing that they were talking unfavorably about him. And, you know, they were documenting some of the concerns that they had about his policies, how frustrated they were and increasingly frustrated they were about his influence. And they couldn't understand, you know, how he was, you know, promoting the nationalist policy, considering he'd had a European education. And they couldn't, you know, understand how the education that they had given him wasn't, you know, conditioning his mind to implement policies that were in his favor. And, you know, I'm sure this is the similar watchful concern that the CIA and others had of our President Magufuli. And I just want to touch on an investigative piece of journalistic work that was mentioned in the chat today. I just want to highlight a few things in that particular document, which, you know, really hones in on who some of the major suspects could potentially be. or who would have had major grudges against President Magufuli. Now, as we all know, President Magufuli was totally opposed to following the World Health Organization's COVID-19 policies. Okay, for them, they obviously would have been extremely concerned that maybe other African governments would have followed suit, that they wouldn't have been able to, you know, maximize the profits that they had already calculated on the basis of, you know, millions of Africans dying after millions of Africans taking their vaccines. So the World Health Organization are extremely concerned about President Magufuli's policies. And, you know, obviously he embarrassed them as well, you know, when he exposed the invalidity of those and unreliability of those PCR tests. Then, of course, you had the Bill Gates Foundation, because President Magufuli actually really annoyed the Bill Gates Foundation, because they were in there carrying out genetically modified crop trials, and he kicked them out twice. They were kicked out. So, you know, they would have been, they were working, Bill Gates Foundation was actually working hand in hand with the Monsanto and the like. And as you know, we had discussions where we talked about how seeds, crops and agriculture can be used as a weapon of war. And, you know, it's highlighted in this document here that after having kicked out Bill Gates funded trials of the GMO crops, that actually angered some of the most powerful people in that sector. He also angered some powerful mining companies, and it's already been talked about here, about the mine, you know, some of the tactics that he used to force the mining companies to pay a fair price, or a bit of a fair price, for some of the minerals that they were taking out of the ground, and also how they were forced to give a small percentage back to the Tanzanian people as well. And these were companies that actually had ties with the World Economic Forum as well. And it was this World Economic Forum is like a conglomerate of international organizations that are working towards what they call in the fourth industrial revolution. So, you know, Brother Kwame was talking about them bringing their antiquated, out-of-date industries now to Africa. Fourth generation industrial revolution is about electric cars. And President Magufuli, they were saying, actually posed a serious threat to them accessing the nickel deposits and the metal that is essential for the development of their electric car batteries, because Tanzania is actually sitting on, you know, one of the world's greatest supply of nickel and the metals that they need for their fourth industrial revolution. And as we know from the Kissinger report, these people don't want to pay a fair price. And as we know from research and the report highlighted about, you know, the reversal of aid, they do not want to pay a fair price for the minerals, for the metals, and for the resources that comes out of Africa's ground. So just a month before President Magufuli took sick, he'd actually signed an agreement to begin developing the nickel deposits with a company. He'd actually signed an agreement, taking it away from the company that had previously owned it, because he took it back for the Barrick Gold and Glenmore. Okay, and they had links and ties to Israel's Mossad. So Barrick Gold and Glenmore, basically had control of these minerals until President Magufuli revoked the contract, revoked the licenses back in 2018. So he was stepping on the toes of some giants. This, you're talking about Israel, you're talking about gold mining companies like Barrick Gold and Glenmore, who float, you know, probably trillions. I haven't looked to see how much on the stock exchange. And you know, there's more here. There was also Oh, a really interesting comment here as well that said, let me just quickly read. It says, in contrast to Magufuli, who routinely stood up to the predatory corporations and imperialist designs of his country, the new incoming president, Samia Suluhu, and Tanzanian opposition politician Tundu Lissu are poised, according to their analysis of these people, are poised to offer up their country's resources and their population on the altar of the Western elite, who are driving the fourth industrial revolution as well. We know that the Western media was demonizing President Magufuli. We know that they were trying to demonize him, to sway the public's opinion of him just before last year, just before the elections, but that didn't work. You know, the people re-elected him again. And his administration, as we know, had cut the salaries of some of the executives. They'd done away with all of those ghost workers. So he was even stepping on toes within his own civil service circles as well. And so, you know, there would have been some who may have had a whole department full of ghost workers who were benefiting from the salary of all of those workers who suddenly had that large extra income that they were used to being cut as well. We know the story around the hospital as well. We know that President Magufuli was all for improving the hospital and healthcare service of his people, and that he added, you know, I think over 100 hospitals or so to the number of hospitals that had existed there from the 1960s, you know. And this is Tanzania, as we know, is a beautiful country. You could fit the United Kingdom 4 times into Tanzania. And it's an amazingly beautiful country, and you have to look at the country for yourself on the internet. Going back to some of the conflicts that President Magufuli was fighting as well. So you've got Magufuli's various conflicts with Marbury transpired throughout his presidency. There was various business projects and ventures of the corporations and the oligarchs that were working to exploit the global south, and they had been doing it for decades, as Prophet was saying, and everyone on the panel was saying that the exploitation of Africa, as we know, has been going on for decades. It's been happening in Tanzania and happening in other countries as well. President Magufuli was trying to put a stop to that ongoing exploitation. They were exploiting them in the agricultural sector. If you look to see what's happened in India in terms of the Monsanto suicide, you'll see that what they was trying to do in Tanzania to try and stop the farmers from sharing their seeds. They were trying to stop the farmers from using their own natural seeds that they've used for tens of thousands of years, and to replace their seeds with genetically modified seeds. You know, him and the agricultural minister and others, you know, in his circle, and economists, etc., they were totally opposed to those trials that was taking place. As I said, Melinda Gates was involved. Bill and Melinda Gates was involved in that. Also, the Rockefeller Foundation are involved in the GM seed agricultural project. Also, the giant Syngenta, Pepsi Cola, and the United States Agency for International Development was involved in that. And as we know, a lot of these are also the financiers of the CIA as well. That is all part and parcel in this. And then in January as well, just before President Magufuli, you know, left us, you had Tanzania's agricultural minister who said not only announced the cancellation of all of those research trials for the second time, but it announced plans to institute new biosafety regulations aimed at protecting Tanzania's food sovereignty by scrutinizing Western GM seeds imports. So they were seeking and moving towards protecting food sovereignty. That is something that the Rockefellers, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were up against as well. So they would have been sanctioning, you know, any moves or any talks from the corporations and the oligarchs and the others to remove this man who was standing in the way of their continued exploitation. And we got a publication here, WikiLeaks, Craig Stapleton, then the US ambassador to France, who actually advised the US to prepare for economic war with countries unwilling to introduce Monsanto's GM corn seeds into their agricultural sectors. These were the sort of conversations that they were having. Prepare to fight, prepare to go to war with the countries that are not prepared to take Monsanto GM corn seeds, which we know would totally destroy Africans' arable land. And then, you know, you've got the US government and their potential to use food as a weapon if they get their way, you know, and impose all of their GM foods on Africa. So basically, President Magufuli, as it was saying here, was robbing the big agriculturalists of their food foothold in Tanzania. So, you know, he was fighting, you know, the big pharmaceuticals. He was fighting the big agriculturalists such as the Monsantos. He was fighting the mining companies and corporations as well. And, you know, very quickly after his death, I noticed they mentioned China as the potential culprit. But what we've got here, you know, when you even look at the fourth industrial revolution and the need for these oligarchs to access those minerals, you know, China, further down in this document, was having conversations with Tanzania about a new agreement. Okay, so there's so much more that I could add here, but because of time, my gosh, I've just realized we're at the top of the second hour. But because of time, I'm going to just stop there for a while, and I'm going to go around and bring in my guests again if they're able to continue. We still have over 150 people with us, and if they're prepared to stay with us, you know, let's give our panel members an opportunity, please, to comment, you know, on some of these huge heads that President Magufuli was rolling, who he was angering, and, you know, felt that the history of exploitation that they had been used to was suddenly going to be coming to an end, and that they were going to have to either pay a fair price for the minerals and resources and potentially run the risk of not being able to access the very minerals that they need for their fourth industrial revolution. It was economic war. The mining companies probably felt that they were at war with President Magufuli, as well as these other big heads that I've mentioned. Let me go first of all, please, to Brother Kwame to respond to some of the comments, please.
Thank you so much, Sister Shanice, once again. You know, when I'm speaking, when I'm talking about Africa's affairs and what is happening in Africa, it causes a lot of pain in my heart, and I feel a lot of weight because of the way you know, Africa is being exploited, because of the way how our people are dying, and yet the solutions are there. What can be done? I think that is what has been disturbing us. But to come back to President Magufuli, he has taught us a lot, that even in a short time, we can do things in a very short time. You can still hijack him, okay? Even though this is not a political system which we want to work with, but you can still hijack the political system and be able to achieve something for your people. Because any victory gained at any moment, you know, is instrumental. If you look at the things which he achieved, you know, he eliminated unnecessary travels of government officials, and he was able to save more than $400 million every year. Every year, $400 million. So they took this man and invested it in hospitals and what. And these people, airlines and the Western countries who normally want to exploit, because they thrive on this. The Western countries, they thrive on Africa being corrupt. You see, so this corruption, actually, they encourage it when you look at what is happening, because this is the only way they survive. Because if Africa solved the corruption problem, these people, they will not survive. I'll give you an example. The problem which Magufuli was solving is the same problem which these people, even they pointed out last year. I remember, Sister Shanice, I sent you an article whereby the United Nations came out last year, in the fourth quarter of last year, and said that Africa is losing about $89 billion every year due to illicit financial outflow, misinvoicing, and tax evasion. But actually, that is an understatement by United Nations. Africa is losing more than $200 billion, more than $200 billion annually. Kind of, to this kind of, theft resources, and we are receiving around $30 billion every year as aid, but they are taking out $200 billion. And now, when you look at the infrastructure deficit in Africa, we have an infrastructure deficit of $200 billion every year. Okay, don't forget that for a country to develop, for a nation to develop, it is infrastructure. Infrastructure is what spurs development. You can see what is happening in China. Electric rail, look at the roads, how they are invested in roads. Look at the transport, how they are invested in transport. Look at how they are investing now in their own airlines, because they want to compete with Boeing and Airbus. And this is one of the problems why these people are having their problems with China. These Western people, Americans and the Europeans and the Canadians, these people, they move together. The Europeans never be confused in any way that the whites in America, the whites in Europe, the whites in Australia, and the whites in Canada are different. These people are the same. That is why you see they have their organization with 5 eyes. They have NATO. These are imperialistic organizations which are,
And the whites in Russia, my brother.
Yes, they're always scheming to continue the domination.
In Russia.
Yes. So they're always, scheming to continue the domination of the world, to dominate the other people's resources, to steal other people's resources. You can see the connivance which happened in the bombing of Russia. The connivance, in Iraq, Afghanistan, okay? What happened in Libya, France, United States, Britain, they are always at the forefront. Australia and Canada, they are always supporting at the back. You see? So these organizations, these countries, they are fighting against China. You see? Because China has, invested heavily in its infrastructure. China has realized, or it realized a long time ago, that you put your politics in order, the other things will take care of themselves. Economics, military, what. These will take care of themselves once you put your politics in order. Industrialization, you put out a policy of industrialization. You see, you have telecommunication companies now in China which are out competing. You can see the problems they put on Huawei. You see, now they are putting problems on Comac, which is developing planes, planes for China, because China has realized that in the future it is going to have a very huge market of airplanes. So they started developing their planes. So these people are fighting, these Western people are fighting against that, because they are dominating the manufacture of aeroplanes in the world, Boeing and Airbus. So they don't want the competition from China. So Magufuli he was trying to solve these problems, to solve the infrastructure problem. Okay, so but how was it solving the infrastructure problem? He's using the money. For example, if you look at acacia mining is from Britain. Okay, and now when you look at Baraka, the company called the Baraka also is in gold. Now I want to mention what Nkrumah mentioned one time. I want to say something which Nkrumah mentioned one time. He said that These multinational corporations, they are intertwined, okay? They are intertwined in such a way that you cannot, understand how they are operating. But you have to look carefully. When you look carefully, you will see that the Europeans are the same, Canadians, Americans. Now, Acacia is in Britain, okay? Now, Barrick Gold Mining, another one, is in Canada, but they are intertwined. These corporations are intertwined. Now, Magufuli went and took them and choked them because they have been stealing from the country. They don't pay taxes, okay? They don't want to pay taxes. And in back taxes, the taxes which they have evaded, around $400 million, okay? $400 million. And he said that we got them. When you look at one of the speeches which he gave, there's a speech which they said that the speech which led to the killing of Magufuli. Magufuli said we got them, and we took money from them, 1 trillion Tanzania shilling, which is around $400 million. And he said we are going to use this money to build the hospitals for the poor, to correct the schools, the roads, our roads. And he said that we put them on the table and we renegotiated. And he said that they normally say that we, the blacks, we cannot negotiate with the whites. And he said we negotiated them and we took 16% of the gold mines, even though it is less. But he said we took it back. So these are the achievements. So he used this money and he invested it in the infrastructure because he understands. He understands that infrastructure is what spurs economic growth. So now, how has that economic growth come about? Because of investing in infrastructure. Without investing in infrastructure, you can't have economic growth. So these are the problems which he has been, solving. Now, the illicit financial outflow, which is the problem which they are playing.
One more minute, please, my brother, only because of time, because we're already over. But let me allow you to just land now, please. Sorry to cut you.
So he has come to solve. He came to solve the problem of the illicit financial outflow. Now, contrary to what everyone is telling you, that the problem in Africa is corruption, corruption is a symptom, is not a problem in Africa. All the world has corruption. Okay, all the world.
Yes,
we're talking about corruption. The most corrupt countries is Europe and the United States. So he came to solve these problems through blocking the illicit financial outflow. So that once we solve that problem of illicit financial outflow, organize our politics very well and block the illicit financial outflow, we'll have enough resources. We have enough resources to take care of all our problems as Africans.
Absolutely.
But
and that's certainly
those who are stealing from us. So we have to block this stealing, and then we can solve all these problems. Corruption is a very small problem in Africa, small one. That one is a very small problem. Once we block off the stealing, which the major problem is the Europeans who are stealing from us, and then the Chinese you are adding, and then now the Indians are also coming. So once we organize our politics as Pan-Africans, we advocate for a union government in Africa. We block off these parasites who are stealing from Africa, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, Australians, now Chinese, and all these other small problems. We will solve them. We will solve them.
Absolutely.
There will be no problem. So thank you very much, everyone.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 on this one. I'm so sorry to have to ask you to wind up there. I was trying to give you 10 minutes and everybody at least 10 minutes. Sorry. Let me, absolutely agree with everything you were saying there as well, my brother. There's so much work to be done there. And that's exactly what President Magufuli was doing, just exposing the extent to which, these outside institutions and mining companies, etc., were actually raping and exploiting his country. And once he started clamping down on it, the money was there for him to do all of what you was just listing. And he didn't need to go to the World Bank for a loan either, which is another kind of misconception that most of Africa has, that they need, to go run into a Western bank for money in order to build their infrastructure, and they don't. Leader Bandaka, let me go over to you now, my brother.
Yeah, Tendai Mwari, bless you, my sister. And I could sit down and listen to my brother Kwame all night long. I'm just so impressed and inspired by a young brother who is so well informed, has such a depth and breadth of knowledge on the African continent, and I can only,
we might do a
yeah, I can
part
only,
two.
yeah,
Let me,
I can only applaud you.
sorry,
I'm
my
going to be
brother.
getting
I
in
was going to
touch
say,
with
let me
you.
put it out there. Let me put, sorry, let me put it out there in the chat. Family, do you want us to do a part two on this? There's so much more that needs to be said. You know, if you think we need to do a part two, and if I can persuade our panel members to come back again to address this topic, then we can have a part two if you would be rejoining us to continue the debate. Get my tongue around it. Sorry to cut you there, brother leader.
All right, my
Please
sister.
continue.
That's all right. I just want to really heal my brother, and just encourage him to just keep on doing what he's doing, because we need young blood in this thing, you know. And your passion and your conviction is just so impressive. Tendai Mwari. So much to say, not enough time. But I do want to just emphasize. Let me start with this. There's a couple of points I have down here that I want to just touch on. Won't be able to elaborate too much. But as a people, we have some serious challenges on the continent of Africa, and that case has been very well made this evening. There is serious work to be done. And what is lacking is the level of organization at the grassroots level. We are the grassroots level, and we are critiquing critiquing officialdom that exists in our name. African governments on the African continent, that's officialdom in our name. We are critiquing them, but there are levels of organization that we should be engaging in on the ground, so that we would be more effective in making representation to these institutions that are supposed to be erected to represent us. And that's something we've got to think about very seriously. And that is not to not recognize that there's good work going on the ground, but evidently not enough. Evidently, work that is going on needs to rise in quality and quantity. Okay? I want to suggest that even though I totally agree that the political kingdom must be secured before the economic kingdom is secured, I want to suggest that there's another layer, another kingdom that has to be secured before the political kingdom, and that is the spiritual cultural kingdom. And I think that's where we fall flat, because we have to understand the spiritual cultural kingdom is about how we restore the African mind, the African centered mind. It's how we recenter ourselves spiritually within the context of our own nature of being. We've been yanked out of our own nature of being by alien religions and alien cultures. And that's the biggest challenge that faces African people today. And that's why we think like aliens. We think like Arabs. We think like Europeans. If we worship Arab gods and we worship European gods, and we require to speak their language in order to communicate with the supreme being, then we are really altering, or we're really suppressing our authentic African nature of being. So we must seek the spiritual cultural kingdom even before the political kingdom. But the political kingdom has to be secured before the economic kingdom. As I said, there's a couple of points I want to address. The point that Brother Kweku made about President Samia Hassan and her husband is one that we need to look into very seriously. We also need to look into information that suggests that that President Hussein herself has a background in the World Economic Forum. She has a background or some connection in the World Economic Forum. That's something that we need to look into and we need to interrogate. I want to make no accusations, but I want to say that that information is out there. We need to look into it. That's part of our responsibility and our challenge. And if there are some connections, what are those connections? And what are the implications for Tanzania and the perpetuation of the legacy of President Magufuli? Because the World Economic Forum is one of those major New World Order institutions that is controlled by the global plutocrats, the same global plutocrats that control and fund the World Health Organization. They work hand in glove, and the World Economic Forum is behind this whole pandemic, scamdemic, as much as the World Health Organization. They're hand in glove. Okay, so that's a project for all of us. Let me just touch on this. Colonel Gaddafi was mentioned earlier on, and it was suggested that we need to learn from him because his security was tight. But in the final analysis, they took him out. Yeah, in the final analysis, they took him out. Perhaps we could learn something from Robert Mugabe. They were not able to take him out. That's a case study for us. How is it that they weren't able to take out Robert Mugabe? What was it that Robert Mugabe did? A lot of people don't realize how tight Robert Mugabe's inner circle was and how developed Zimbabwe's intelligence agency was, the Central Intelligence Organization. How highly sophisticated and intelligent, to the point that it was able to detect, I think it was in 2007. Brothers and sisters may remember that there was a plot to wage a coup in Equatorial Guinea, and that amongst other persons who were behind that coup was the son of a former Prime Minister of Britain, one Mark Thatcher, was behind that attempted coup. It was Zimbabwe's intelligence agency that was able to detect that coup that was being unearthed. And they were traveling to Equatorial Guinea via Zimbabwe. And that was when they were intercepted by Zimbabwean intelligence. So there's something, that's something that we need to look into. Clearly, Zimbabwe's intelligence was more successful and more sophisticated. I can tell, brothers and sisters, that there was a plot to assassinate Robert Mugabe when Robert Mugabe started as president of Zimbabwe. There's a character named Peter Ward. I think his name was Peter Ward, who was the head of the British Army in the head of the Rhodesian Army, and who was heading the intelligence service at the time in Zimbabwe. But Robert Mugabe had his eye on him. Robert Mugabe had his own men around this character in his own home, cooking his own food and listening to him and bringing back information to Robert Mugabe. And Robert Mugabe was able to unearth a plot to assassinate him by this character. So we need to study Robert Mugabe and why they were not able to topple Robert Mugabe. And we need to study this Gaddafi even further. Because Gaddafi, as I've said on this program before, was an Arab expansionist. I know many Pan-Africanists celebrate him as a Pan-African. He was not, for a start, he was not an African. He was an Arab. And he was an Arab who had a vision to unite the Arab world. and to be kingpin in the Arab world. And he saw Africa as an object he could use in that process. Gaddafi said that Africa was a cultural vacuum and invited the Arab world to come into Africa and fill that cultural vacuum. Those were his words. Those were Gaddafi's words. Gaddafi funded Sarkozy's last election that he won. He funded that election. Gaddafi used to fund the London School of Economics. He was in their pocket. Gaddafi met up with Tony Blair and was kissing up with Tony Blair. We have to remember these things. Another subject for another time. Very quickly. I appreciate where Prophet Meduti is going when he says no white man killed any of those leaders. I understand where he's going. But we have to understand that the vicarious responsibility is with the people who pay and who control those who strike the death blow. We have to understand Mobutu was working for the enemy. Yedema, who assassinated Olympia, was working for the enemy. He was a trained in the French Legionnaires. The police and the soldiers who conspired to overthrow Kwame Nkrumah were trained and funded by the British and the Americans, mainly the British. Those soldiers were trained at Sandhurst, and they were trained to be loyal to the British Empire. So we have to understand that we have a serious problem here. And the problem has to do with the history of colonialism and the conditioning of the hearts and minds of African people that they can control and manipulate and turn against their own people and against their own interests. Yeah? So, beloved brothers and sisters, going forward, it is about reviving the black print of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey. We as African people must understand. Papa Garvey said the greatest weapon used against the African is a weapon of disorganization. We are not as organized. I'm not saying there are no African organizations. I'm simply saying we are not as organized as we should be. There's a level at which we ought to be organizing now. I'm excited, by the way, Brother Kwame, about the prospects of the Rapid Africa Plan. I'm excited about that. Sister Shanice, I'm excited about the Summit of Solutions and the visions around that. We need to get these projects and programs going, and we need to join up the dots. The dots need to be joined up so that we can make representation to officialdom on the African continent from an organized, as nationally organized or internationally organized bodies of African people. And the last point I wanted to make was that this reference that you made, Sister Shanice, about this weapon, this gun that the CIA had invented, this vicious weapon. You know that is something that came out in a process that was called the Church Committee in 1975. They actually had a sample of the gun. They actually had a sample of that gun when they were investigating the role that intelligence agencies played in America in response to civil rights movement. and found that some of the most vicious methods of human abuse was used against the African community. And this is very, very important, because this is 50 years on, or 60 years on. These technologies, as already been said, is even more highly developed. But something more powerful than these weapons of mass body destruction is the power of their propaganda, their weapons of mass mind destruction. We're also up against that. And because of that, programs like these are also important. And let me say this in closing, beloved brothers and sisters. When President Magufuli passed away, the British, not just the British, but the global white media just put it out there that he died of COVID-19, or may have died of COVID-19. You know what they're doing. They don't answer questions. They don't have no evidence. But they just say, right? But so many of us are caught up with whether we have enough evidence to be suspicious that President Magufuli may well have been assassinated. Where is the evidence? Well, you don't need evidence to prosecute a case against a suspect. What you need is reasonable grounds for suspicion. That's all you need, reasonable grounds for suspicion. And I would argue that we have more than reasonable grounds for suspicion. And once you have reasonable grounds for suspicion, then you start to follow your leads and you do your investigation, and then you piece together your evidence. And yes, it's necessary for
please allow me to interrupt you small. That is one of the things actually I was going to talk about, but I didn't touch it a little bit. The issue that we have to stand our ground and hold and accuse these people of what they have been doing. I think we have to make it very, very clear. Even if when they ask us for evidence, the evidence is there. The evidence is in what they have been doing to our leaders.
Absolutely.
And the documents are there. The documents are out there. So that is all I wanted to add on what you've just said. The documents are there, what they did to Malcolm X, what they did to Martin Luther King, what they did to Kwame Nkrumah, all these people, what they did to them. Evidence is there. We have enough evidence. So we don't need new evidence. And already Sister Shanice gave us a document which they are using. This, an article with the weapons which they are using, what they have been using on Castro, what they did to Lumumba. Lumumba, even Patrice Lumumba, they wanted to use toothpaste and put it in, in his room so that he can use toothpaste, and there's poison. So that is just one thing I wanted to add in. So the evidence, we have it.
Absolutely, absolutely. They were going to inject poison in his toothpaste, and in fact, Larry Devlin, who was the Congo CIA Congo station chief, he has stated publicly, he's dead and gone now, but he has stated publicly in 2 documentaries that Dwight Eisenhower, who was the then president of America, had sent instructions to him to assassinate Patrice Lumumba by poisoning his toothpaste, and sent him the poison. They decided against it for various reasons in the final analysis. But the whole chicanery around the assassination of Patrice Lumumba was a conspiracy between America, Belgium, France, Britain, and the United Nations. And the United Nations. And there's evidence, clear evidence, to prove all of this. So let me stop it there, because I suspect that we
yes, time. Thank you so much. About 15% of those in the chat have said yes, we must do a part 2. So I will be coming back to you, panel members, to see if we can do a part 2, maybe same time next strong. But I'm not going to put you on the spot, because I know you may all need to check your diaries first, but please do check in, family, and we'll definitely be back on Wednesday. So please do check in on Wednesday, 8 p.m. GMT time. But let me go over to Prophet Maduti. So much has been said, Prophet, since the last time we spoke with you. The floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, Otep, my mechanism, my internet connection where I am, because I'm not normally where I normally transmit from. So the internet connection is messing about. Yeah, I hear what my brother Mandaka said, but let me be very clear and precise. You learn from everybody. You learn from everybody. If you study the Chinese was invaded by Sweden, Spain, Italy, Britain, France, Russia, Germany, and Japan. That's how Britain was able to get Hong Kong from them. But the Chinese man that leased Hong Kong to them knew that he probably wouldn't live to see Hong Kong back in the hands of China. But they went on a 100-year program. And that's what we need to do. We need to have a 100-year plan. Because it ain't going to happen in mine in your lifetime. We're just doing what we have to do at the moment that we're doing. And so we have to clear the path for those that will take Africa back. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Whether peacefully or by war. You understand? So I'm under no illusions. We're not ready yet. Military for take on them people here. Because that's what them deal with. Study ancient Kemet and the times when Kemet was running things. And when the bad boy them a rule upon the throne, Ramesses and second and Seti the first, and took Moses the third. Mm-hmm. And then Pianki and the man they come up from Tarseti and all them place there. I went and Shabaka and all them man there. And when them man they run things, when them a box up the Hittite them and I expand the empire for keep them out. Not for conquer people, for keep them away. It was never about us conquering people. You understand me? So until we get our military side and our intelligence and all them things, nothing else where we do. Go and secure from them the people there. Because so them think. You have to sometime, you have to think like your enemy. You have to know them, to preempt them. Remember, when them come to Africa, them come with them like a pilgrim. And them so-called explorer. For find out with weaknesses and things like that. And infiltrate with. And I saw them tear we down. And I'm gonna stand by what I say, in spite of what my brother said. And none of white boy kill any other man there. A man will look like we right on this platform here. Treasonous behavior. But there's no price to betray the African. That is the thing. They don't have that patriotism in them soul to even be a double agent to reggae. How come we not a double agent? If we agent does one way, betray we. I know we want people are spy pan. You know, you think the European. I know we want them a spy pan.
Well, quickly, you allow me a sentence. You allow me one sentence. Allow me a sentence.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They could not have done it, and they would not have done it without their white masters. They were working for their white masters, and they could not and would not have done it without their white masters. And maybe when we meet again, I can develop on that.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if you listened to what I said earlier. I said, when I made that statement earlier, I said, we are not letting them off the hook. We know that they are the perpetrators, the instigators, and the orchestrators of what happened. But when all is said and done, it's one of us that pull it.
So we have to have our people in such a way that them don't want to betray we. That is impossible for them to penetrate we. Because them could never listen. When you look up down at the Congo, them talk about Leopold and all them. You think a Leopold man them with a chop a black man on? I see a black man them when they bring from somewhere else. Tribalism. That's another something we have to get rid of. We have to be honest.
Oh, you're on mute, Prophet. You're on mute.
Yeah, we have to be honest about our story, our history. If we are not honest about it and truthful, then we're prone to make the same mistakes. So even the good and the bad and the indifferent, we have to highlight them, because only when we do that, we will see where we made our mistakes. Only then can we correct them. And we must look everywhere for solutions and watch how other people do things and how they have dealt with these people. I know that nobody has suffered what we have suffered, but we can learn from other people. You understand what I say? The bottom line, we have to have our intelligence.
Yeah.
After it's imperative, because let's say, for instance, them leave us alone, and I'm going to land on this. Let's say, for instance, them leave us alone, and we develop Africa, and we don't develop our defense. We not a submarine. We not fighter jet them. We not a gunboat. And if we have those things, we're having to buy it from them. Supposing we build up Africa and all these things, etc. How are we going to defend it? Suppose them say no, they want it. How are we going to defend it? It's as simple as that. If you can't defend your things, if you can't defend your things, you will become the prey for the predator. And these people have predatistic instincts. And I'll leave it at that because I know it's time. Hotep.
Hotep. Oh, thank you, panel members. Thank each and every one of you so much. I know that there's so much more that could have been said, and our audience is calling for a part 2 on this, so I will be speaking to each of you separately on that. So audience, you know, I hope we'll be able to announce something on Wednesday. So I absolutely agree with what's been said about the traitors among us. And as I've said before, those traitors have always been among us throughout our enslavement. Prior to our enslavement, they have always been among us. There's a particular trait of those among us who, you know, don't have any loyalty to their race. And, you know, prophets have said it could be tribalism or what have you, but, you know, that trait has been amongst us. Got you.
Yeah. One of the pivotal parts in our story was the 2 Punic Wars. And we lost the last one. And the reason why we lost that last one was because Africans supported the Romans against Hannibal.
That's right.
That
to their own downfall.
Everything.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
So you know, let's not try to pretty up our story. Yeah? We messed up, and we messed up big time. And that wasn't the only time either.
That's right. Yeah? But as you said,
as Brother Mbandaka said earlier, we take up foreign doctrines, and now them here we attack them we kill we for Islam and kill we for Christianity. And them look like we. You understand me I say? So these are the things, these are the obstacles we've got to get over.
Yes. There's so much more to say on all of this, Prophet, because the same document I was reading was actually identifying particular training that's going on now in Tanzania. These institutions, these organizations, they're in our country training our young people to be advocates against their own government. They're pumping money into opposition, into grooming young leaders who will be the leaders of the future to represent the interests of the foreign corporations. So, you know, they're continuing to do the work. You know, they said in the chat, we need to bring back African pride, that sense of, you know, proudness amongst us as a people. So we wouldn't want to betray our people. But remember, you said it as well earlier, the quote from Stephen Biko, he who controls the mind of the people. I can't remember it in total, but you come with a Steve Biko quote for me, please. One of my panel members.
The greatest weapon
in the hands of the,
the oppressor, the minds of the oppressed.
Mind of the oppressed, and they've got our minds. Yeah, they've got our minds through the curriculum that we are teaching our children and our people on a daily basis in their schools. You say we need to learn from our history, then we're not learning our history in the curriculum. But there's, you know, we could easily continue the conversation for another few hours because there's so much more to discuss here. But you know what? We will be back, all being well, on Wednesday, 8 p.m. GMT time, 7 p.m. Gambia time. Family, for those of you who contributed some finance to us today, wow, that's the first. I didn't even know that that could be done. So I want to thank you so much to those of you that contributed, you know, a financial incentive. Thank you so much. And as I said, on Wednesday, we'll be back. The discussion, someone requested this discussion in the chat today. We're going to be looking at racism in the UK, and in particular, this report that was written by an African here in the UK that was basically saying institutional racism no longer exists in the UKKK. Really? So we're going to be discussing that report on Wednesday. I heard the discussion on the Al Kabelan show on the Big G Galaxy Alpha Week. And then there will be a 10 to midnight slot with our brother Franklin Jones as well, who's going to be talking about the African body and the white mind and the science behind it. So family, thank you so much. More love, more power, more wisdom to each and every one. Leader, thank you. Prophet, in your absence, thank you. Brother Kwame, thank you so much. And to all of those who have watched this live and is going to be watching us on the replay, thank you so much. One love. Sister Shanice out of here. All be well. Be black on Wednesday. Bye for now.